Okay. So hello again to all the academic students. Thanks to those of you who put your answers in the comments under yesterday's demo lesson. You're actually just doing a really, really good job these days. I mean, all the key things that students usually find difficult, you're actually doing. You're actually doing very, very well. So this is great. But I think it also means that I need to change the format of these demo lessons a little bit. So I want to get your feedback on a few things later on. But first, just let's take a look through your answers, the strengths and weaknesses, and so on. Right. So that there was your question. It looked quite tricky because there's so much. I think the names of the categories are so long, and it seems like there's a lot going on, but really the charts are independent again, so you didn't need to compare any of the data, so it was pretty straightforward. So just analysing the question, so I'll just show you kind of what I pointed out quickly. Just that this one at 54% was single women with no dependent children, and that was the largest category in the pie chart. I think pretty much everybody included that in their overview. Married women with no dependent children was the lowest, and I would put that in as the second part of my first overview, basically because it's kind of surprising that both of these, I know your own opinion shouldn't be part of it, so surprising is the wrong word to use, but I feel that it's significant that both of these categories have no dependent children. The only difference is that this group is married and this group is single, and that being married has such a big impact on the level of poverty. I think that's quite significant. So I would have included as my first key feature that these 2 points, that was the biggest and that was the smallest. In the bar chart then, I think what I would have done is I would have just called out that the 3 lowest age groups were higher than any of the others. So I think that to me is quite significant in that after this third age group there's a massive drop for men and it stays relatively low, and with women there's this kind of a swoop down and back up again, like kind of a, I don't know, like kind of a roller coaster slide type of a thing here. So there's like a dip and an increase. So that in the overview would be a lot to try and explain. You'd be going into too much detail. If it was from back here and it dipped down all the way and then start going up again, I would mention it. But because of this 18 to 24 year old age group, that when it's higher than the ones next to it, so it would be difficult to describe all that up and down for women as part of your key feature. So I think you're going to make your life a lot easier by just saying amongst the age groups, both males and females experience the highest level of poverty in the 3 youngest age groups. That's what I would have done. But having said that, these were your strengths, which means the fact that you didn't do it the way I did it it's not an issue whatsoever. So first of all, your paraphrasing of the question was really, really good in that you didn't add any extra information to it, or you didn't remove any information, and you didn't change anything. So basically the meaning was the exact same. When I read your paraphrases, it was very obvious what the charts were about, and I could understand them without having to go and look at the question again to verify what you mean. Like sometimes when a paraphrase is bad, the examiner will have to look back at the question to see what are you trying to say, and that's never a good thing. But with all your paraphrases from yesterday, it's very clear what you're saying, and you're communicating the ideas very clearly in your paraphrase. Some of you added a little bit about like marital status and about dependence for the pie chart, which is completely fine. That it's still accurate, and you're adding to it, but not in a way that would usually harm a paraphrase where students can add information that isn't relevant or isn't even included. So there, the paraphrases are good. In that respect, everyone is accurately analysing the graph. So this basically means that your overviews are accurate because you're picking accurate and logical key features. So this is really, really important. If you cannot do this, analyse the graph properly, you won't be able to write an accurate overview. And you are all doing this. There are a few small mistakes with overviews, but I pointed out these mistakes in the comments already. So it would be good if you're not confident with your overviews, you can go back and have a look at other students' comments and see where the people go wrong. They're only minor mistakes, but nonetheless, you would need to avoid them in future. Then on to the details paragraphs, that there's a good level of detail in that you're not going into too much detail, especially like with the bar chart. I think there were something like 10 categories for 10 different age groups, and then 2 different genders. Like there's no way you would want to include 20 different figures in one details paragraph. You're all aware of that, so a good level of detail that you were able to include enough and kind of decide on what to include and what not to include. So that again is really, really good. And then obviously another strength is that a good level of accuracy in details paragraphs. Now this is what I mean here is the data. So for some reason students very often, like more often than you believe, and you're probably doing it yourself more often than you believe, is copying the wrong data from the chart. So you should really have the chart in front of you when you're writing, and just double check. If it's something that you do, double check, make sure that you're writing down the correct percentage or the correct age or whatever number it may be. But very, very often you see students just, I guess, losing focus or for whatever reason, but write down the wrong figure, and this can have a really big impact on your score. A big impact with regard like how simple and how small a mistake it is, but that will really affect your task achievement score. But I guess I'm preaching to the choir here, where I'm telling you not to do the thing that you don't do. So I probably don't need to say this to you in too much detail. So let's just move on to your weaknesses. Okay, so vocabulary and grammar. These are the main weaknesses, and this is something where you don't have to have perfect vocabulary and you don't have to have perfect grammar to get a good score. To get a good score in IELTS, you're doing everything else well. So vocabulary and grammar are kind of like, amongst the answers from yesterday, they're kind of like the 2 things that are kind of hanging on, and the things that need to be improved the most. Now this depends a lot on what scores you need. So I think most of you, it seems like you finished the course already because you're able to produce answers of that quality. So I think it would be a very good idea for you to get your vocabulary and your grammar checked. Get your essays checked, and you'll see what scores you're getting for vocabulary and grammar. And I think for any of you who are getting lower than you need, it's probably vocabulary and grammar that's affecting your score more so than your ability to analyze the question and write the answer and all those strengths that I pointed out. So basically, if you're having an issue with vocabulary and grammar, you got the vocabulary improvement plan in the essential documents to work on your vocabulary, and also like Chris's 100% rule is really, really helpful here. With grammar, then Chris has the IELTS grammar course. I'm not sure if there are places, so you would need to email Chris first just to make sure. But I mean, if there aren't places now, there'll be places coming up in the future again if you need help with grammar. But what I was thinking of doing then is that I would kind of change the focus of my demo lessons and do some like task 1 vocabulary demo lessons and task 1 grammar demo lessons, because what I've been doing so far is very much focusing on like task achievement, coherence and cohesion, and like different, like how to structure, what to include, what not to include, and all that kind of thing, more so than the vocab and the grammar. And I've done, like since the start of this year, I've done pretty much like 20 demo lessons, and I think at this point it's unlikely that those of you who have completed all the task 1 modules on the course and have gone through all like 20 demo lessons or so are still struggling with those areas. So if you're a newer student, I'd recommend, obviously, first and foremost, is finish the modules, but then go back and look at the older demo lessons. I think that would be more of an advantage than me to continue focusing on those things. So what I want your feedback on is, how do you feel about me shifting the focus to vocab and grammar and kind of moving away from more like key features, overviews, and that kind of thing. So please, in the comments under this video, let me know what you think of that idea. So it would be something similar to like Sean's lesson. Was it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where he focused on like vocab and structures to use for describing a map. So that kind of thing. And I've been inspired a lot by that lesson from Sean, and that there's a lot more I can do in that area. So anyway, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but basically, let me know what you think of shifting focus to vocab and grammar and away from the other aspects of task 1. Okay, so then as usual, I've just pulled out a few mistakes from students' writing. So this is just 3 different like chunks, like 2 overviews and a paraphrase. So what I want you to do is just look at this and then correct any mistakes, be it vocab or grammar, correct the mistakes, and when you're ready, just press play again and you'll see the corrections I made. Okay, so I'm just going to show you mine here. So the first one I said, overall, unmarried women with no dependent children who suffer from poverty represent the majority of females in poverty, while married women with no children to support have the lowest percentage. So this is basically what I said I would represent in my overview for the first chart. This isn't my overview, this is from a student, but this would be my first key feature as well. This here, kids, isn't suitable because that's very informal. If you use this word in speaking, you'll be okay, but for writing, you're not going to get away with that. Here is more than half of the total female population. That doesn't really fit together. So you're going to have to say that they represented over half the total female, or more than half the total female population, half the female poverty population were unmarried women. So you need to switch around the clauses or do it the way I've done it there. The second one then, overall, more women are living in poverty in all age groups. As age increases, there are less men living in poverty, whereas the figures for women fluctuate with an increase in age. Okay, so that's the correction. Here, more women are living in poverty in both categories. That's just unclear. So I think the person meant in both charts, but the first chart is only about women. So there are no men in the first chart. So it doesn't make sense to say that. So that just basically wasn't clear. But the problem with my correction then is that all of this is about the second chart, and there's no information given in relation to the pie chart. The last one then, the graphs demonstrate the proportions of poor females by marital status and dependence, and the percentage of poor according to gender and 10 categories of age. So here, this is more vocabulary was the issue. Underprivileged and impoverished. Like that word might kind of conjure ideas of poverty, but there's more with it. So it's not just as simple as that. There's extra meaning involved, and it's not an accurate or a direct synonym for poor or poverty. And then this person seems to have like tried to create their own synonym. But if you're really forcing it and you're just trying to come up with something, it's very likely you're going to make a mistake. So if you knew exactly you were right, you wouldn't have gone with this. And this is more like when students hope that what they're saying is accurate, as opposed to knowing what they're saying is accurate. So this is why I brought up this one, because it's a common mistake, and it's something that you should really avoid. I mean, like wanting to have a higher level of vocabulary and having a higher level of vocabulary are not the same. So like kind of wanting to have it and then hoping you're right, that's not going to work. You're going to have to go back, improve your overall level. You're going to have to just put in the work. Like the standard you're at now is because you went and learned all those words you know, and that's the only way to stay improving. It's not just going to happen by itself. Yep, so that's pretty much it. So again, please comment under the video. Let me know what you think about doing lessons focus more on vocabulary and grammar. And if you don't like that idea, obviously I'll continue as I am, or I'll figure out another way of presenting my demo lessons to you guys. Okay, thank you all.